My entire life, my family treated me like an outsider and my brother like a king. So when my wife cheated on me with him, got pregnant with his baby, and my family helped them ruin me in the divorce, I was devastated but not surprised. But then I got a major promotion, and suddenly their golden child needed money, and they all came begging to the brother they threw away. My divorce from my wife was finalized 2 months ago, but the end of my marriage really happened 4 months prior to that, in the sterile silence of our bedroom, with the blue light of a phone screen illuminating a betrayal so profound it felt like a physical wound. She had been cheating on me with my estranged brother, the golden child of our family, for the better part of a year. The proof was in her hand, in the casual cruelty of the text messages I'd found. The affair culminated in a pregnancy, one she initially tried to pass off as mine. For a blissful few weeks, I was ecstatic, a man on the verge of fatherhood, completely oblivious to the fact that my entire world was a carefully constructed lie. My family and I have a long, complicated history, which is a polite way of saying we were never really a family to begin with, at least not for me. I was the perpetual outsider, the constitutional afterthought, while my brother, who is technically my twin but feels like a different species, was the sun around which my parents' world revolved. He was the golden child, and I was the shadow he cast. This dynamic was the defining feature of my childhood, a constant, low-grade hum of inadequacy that followed me everywhere. The most glaring example, the one that serves as the cornerstone of my resentment, happened the year I got into my dream college. It was a top-tier university, a feat I'd accomplished through sheer force of will, countless sleepless nights, and a relentless dedication to my studies. It was to date the single greatest achievement of my young life. My parents had promised a celebration, a party to acknowledge my hard work. I came home from school that day, my acceptance letter a warm, crinkly talisman in my pocket, my chest puffed with a rare and fragile sense of pride. I walked into the house to find it already filled with relatives, music playing, a buffet of food spread across the dining room table. For a moment, my heart swelled. They'd actually done it. They were celebrating me. But then I noticed my brother in the center of the living room, surrounded by a crowd of fawning aunts and uncles, opening gifts. I thought it was a little strange that the party meant for me had started without me, but I pushed the thought aside. Then I saw the cake on the kitchen counter. It was a massive sheet cake, decorated with blue and gold frosting, the colors of my brother's high school. And in big, looping letters it read, "Congratulations on being the best." I felt the blood drain from my face. I finally found my parents and confronted them, my voice shaking with a fury I could no longer contain. I asked them why they had thrown a party for my brother when this was supposed to be about my accomplishment, a real, tangible achievement. My mother looked at me, not with apology, but with a weary sigh, as if I were a particularly difficult toddler. She told me that after my acceptance letter arrived, they didn't want my brother to feel left out or overshadowed. So they decided to throw him a party instead to celebrate his general wonderfulness. My father added that instead of throwing a tantrum, I should be trying to uplift my brother, to be happy for him. That single moment broke something inside me. The fragile pride I had felt just moments before shattered into a million pieces. On that day, I made a silent vow. I would leave and I would never come back. And I kept that promise. I worked my way through college, juggling a full course load with 2 part-time jobs and taking out loans to cover the rest. I graduated with honors, and not a single member of my family was in the audience. After graduation, I rented a tiny, rundown apartment with a friend and started the slow, arduous process of building a life from scratch. For years, there was silence. I never called them, and they never tried to contact me. It was as if I had ceased to exist. Then, last year, a message popped up on my social media. It was my brother. He said he wanted to reconnect, that our parents missed me terribly and regretted how things had ended. A lot had changed in my life. I was no longer that broken 18-year-old. I had a good job, a solid circle of friends, and 2 years prior, I had gotten married. I was living a comfortable, stable life. But the scars from my childhood had never fully healed. A small, foolish part of me still craved the parental approval I had never received. So, Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them. The reunion was as awkward and stilted as you might imagine, but they seemed to be making an effort. They apologized for their past behavior, acknowledging that they hadn't been fair to me. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to finally have the family I had always wanted. I was so desperate to believe it was real that I ignored the little red flags. The way their compliments still felt backhanded. The way my brother's smile never quite reached his eyes. In my eagerness to build a bridge, I invited them into my home, into my life. And that was my first catastrophic mistake. I introduced my brother to my wife. The moment they met, there was a spark. I saw it, but I told myself I was being paranoid, projecting my own insecurities onto them. They started an affair, and a few months later, she got pregnant. When she told me, I was overjoyed. I had no reason to suspect the baby wasn't mine. But then, my brother's visits became more frequent. At first, I was happy to see him, still clinging to the hope of a renewed relationship. But then it started getting weird. He would place his hand on my wife's pregnant stomach, a possessive, proprietary gesture, and speak to the baby in low, intimate tones. My ex would wave it off, telling me it wasn't a big deal, that he was just excited to be an uncle. But a creeping, sickening suspicion began to take root in my mind. 6 months into the pregnancy, the doubt became a gnawing, unbearable anxiety. One night, while she was asleep, I did something I never thought I would do. I went through her phone, and there it was, my worst fears confirmed in a series of casual, damning text messages. The texts between her and my brother were a brutal, unfiltered account of their deception. They proved beyond any doubt that the baby was his. They had been together for months, laughing at me behind my back, mocking my naivety. But it was worse than just a simple affair. They had a plan. My ex had no intention of ever telling me the truth. She and my brother were going to let me believe the child was mine. Then, after the baby was born, she would divorce me, and they would get together, their new life funded by the generous child support they planned to extract from me. The next morning, I confronted her. She tried to deny it at first, to gaslight me, but the evidence was irrefutable. Eventually, she gave up and confessed everything. And just like that, my 2-year marriage was over. Of course, my parents sided with my brother. All their talk of making amends, of the two of us being equally important to them, was just empty words. When my ex and my brother announced their relationship and impending marriage on social media, my entire family rallied around them, flooding their posts with congratulations and heart emojis. No one cared that they had shattered my life, that they had broken my trust in the most intimate and cruel way possible. My ex had lied to me for 6 months, letting me bond with a child that wasn't mine. It felt like I had lost not just a wife, but a son, and the pain was a physical, crushing weight. My parents told me it was all for the best. They once again refused to acknowledge that my brother had done anything wrong. In fact, they had the audacity to tell me that I should be happy for them, that I should join in the celebrations of their newfound happiness. That was the final straw. I cut them out of my life for the second and final time. But the damage was already done. The divorce was a brutal, humiliating affair. My ex-wife, with the full backing of my family, walked away with a huge settlement in my car. She and her lawyer concocted a story of me being a toxic, controlling husband who had forced her to quit her job, a complete fabrication that my family eagerly corroborated. They testified against me, telling the court that the reason they had been estranged from me for so long was because of my misogynistic attitude and uncontrollable temper. The evidence was stacked against me, and I was financially devastated. But I got to keep the house, and by the time the divorce was finalized, I was just glad to be free of them all. I threw myself into my work, using it as a shield against the pain and humiliation. I worked long hours, took on extra projects, and poured all my energy into being better, into proving them all wrong. And it paid off. 2 weeks ago, I received a major promotion, a better position, a significantly higher salary, a new company car, the works. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. To celebrate, I treated myself to a solo dinner at one of my favorite restaurants. It was a small act of self-care, a way of reclaiming my happiness. But I made one crucial mistake. I posted a picture of my celebration online. Within 2 days, my mother contacted me. She asked me to come and visit them. I was baffled. We hadn't spoken a word since the divorce, since they had actively participated in my character assassination. What do they possibly want from me now? I ignored her messages for a few days, but she was relentless. The texts turned into incessant phone calls. And then, one afternoon, she showed up at my office. She caused a scene in the lobby, getting into a shouting match with the receptionist and refusing to leave until I spoke with her. It was mortifying. To get her to leave, I promised I would visit in a few days. A couple of days later, I drove to their new house, a much larger, more expensive place than their old one, a home I quickly realized had been purchased with my settlement money. It was a bitter pill to swallow. My brother wasn't there, and my ex was asleep, so it was just my parents. I didn't bother with small talk. I sat down and waited for them to get to the point. After a few minutes of uncomfortable silence, my father finally blurted it out. My brother had been fired from his job. The alimony and the settlement money, which they had been living on, were no longer enough to support their new, expanded family. They had seen my post about the promotion, and they were hoping I could help them out. My parents were retired, my ex wasn't working, and now my brother, the golden child, was unemployed. With a newborn in the house, they were in a financial crisis. The audacity was breathtaking. After everything they had done, after siding with my cheating wife and brother, after actively participating in ruining me, they now had the nerve to ask me for money. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak. After a few minutes of stunned silence, I came to my senses. I didn't need to entertain this. I didn't owe them a single word. I simply stood up and walked toward the door. As I opened it, I found my brother standing on the porch, looking alarmed to see me. My parents were calling after me, begging me to stay and hear them out. I ignored them and walked out into the pouring rain. It was a short walk to my car, but by the time I reached it, I was completely soaked. As I was fumbling for my keys, they followed me out, the three of them standing there in the downpour, a pathetic tableau of desperation. My brother, the man who had stolen my wife and my life, was the one who made the final plea. He had always been so smug, so arrogant, a product of my parents' unwavering adoration. To see him now, humbled and begging, was a strange, unsettling sight. But any flicker of pity I might have felt was instantly extinguished by the flood of years of resentment and pain. I lost my cool. I told them to leave me alone, that if they were so desperate for cash, they could go and beg on the streets. I said a stranger who knew nothing about their sordid history was more likely to take pity on them than I was. Then I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing there, drenched and defeated, in my rearview mirror. And I won't lie, it felt good. It felt like a small, satisfying measure of justice for a lifetime of mistreatment. For 2 days after that confrontation, my mother bombarded me with texts, a relentless stream of guilt and manipulation. And for a moment, it worked. I felt a pang of guilt, a nagging voice in my head telling me that I had a lot, and a little money wouldn't really hurt me. But then, the anger returned, sharp and clear. They had abandoned me my entire life. They had thrown me under the bus during the most painful experience of my life. Why should I think twice about doing the same to them? I sent my mother one final, curt message: stop contacting me, or my lawyer will. That, it seemed, was the final straw for them. A few days later, my brother showed up at my house. He told me that while he felt sorry for how I'd been treated as a child, he couldn't help the fact that he was just inherently better than me, and that's why our parents had treated him better. He said I should stop holding a grudge and just help them out like a normal son would. I laughed in his face. The sheer, unadulterated delusion of his words was almost comical. I told him that instead of wasting his time trying to manipulate me, he should probably be out looking for a job. That touched a nerve. He started yelling, accusing me of being jealous that everyone, even my own wife, preferred him over me. He said my refusal to give them money was just petty revenge. I didn't even bother to argue. I disagreed with him. "You're right," I said calmly. "This is my revenge, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it." He was so enraged he told me he was going to come after me and force me to cough up the money. I wasn't scared. He was all bluster, a spoiled child who had never had a fight for anything in his life. He was powerless, and he knew it. A few days after my brother's failed attempt at intimidation, my ex-wife called. I almost didn't answer, but I knew if I didn't, they would just show up at my door again. Her tone was initially polite, almost sweet. She told me how much they were struggling, how she realized I had no reason to help them, but she was hoping I would be the bigger person. She tried to make me feel guilty, reminding me of the good times we'd had, of how she had tried to be a good wife. I cut her off. I told her that the only money she was getting from me was the alimony she had conned me out of, alimony she didn't deserve for a second. That's when her tone shifted. The sweetness curdled into a familiar, venomous spite. She started sobbing, calling me selfish and heartless. Then she told me that my brother was right, that she had no choice but to get the law involved. She was going to sue me for a higher alimony payment and drag me back to court to humiliate me all over again. "I'd like to see you try," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a surge of strength. The last time, I was a broken, depressed man who just wanted the pain to end. This time, I was ready to fight, and she did it. To my shock, she actually filed for a higher alimony, citing my promotion as a change in circumstances. But this time, I wasn't going to let them roll over me. I called my lawyer and told him I didn't just want to fight the increase. I wanted to stop paying the alimony altogether. I spent the next few days on a mission, gathering evidence, reaching out to anyone and everyone who had witnessed my family's toxic dynamic over the years. I contacted our mutual friends, most of whom only knew that we had separated, and told them the whole ugly story of the affair and the betrayal. They were shocked and readily agreed to testify on my behalf. I even reached out to a few of my cousins who had watched me grow up as the family scapegoat. They were kind enough to record video testimonials, describing the years of blatant favoritism and emotional neglect I had endured. My lawyer was thrilled. He said we had an airtight case. The fact that she had cheated was already known, but now we had a chorus of voices to dismantle the lies they had built around it, the narrative that had painted me as the villain and my brother as the hero. The day in court was a surreal experience. My family sat on one side of the courtroom, their faces a mixture of arrogance and anxiety. They had nothing, no evidence, no witnesses, just the same tired lies they had used to manipulate the system the first time. When my lawyer presented the video testimonials from our friends and relatives, a ripple of shock went through the courtroom. The smug look on my family's faces slowly melted away, replaced by a dawning horror. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. In light of the new evidence of perjury and emotional abuse, my obligation to pay alimony was terminated, effective immediately. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. It was over. I was truly, finally free. I thought that would be the end of it. But of course it wasn't. That evening, as I pulled up to my house, I saw my brother's car parked outside. And there they were, the whole miserable clan, standing on my porch, blocking my way into my own home. My dad spoke first, his voice trembling with rage. He told me I should be ashamed of myself, that I had betrayed my own family. I said nothing. I just stood there, my face a blank mask, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. My silence seemed to enrage them even more. My mother started screaming at me to show my father some respect. Then my brother snapped. He lunged at me, grabbing me by the collar, his face contorted in a mask of pure, impotent fury. He tried to hit me, but my dad, to his credit, pulled him back. He screamed at me, calling me a jealous loser who would never amount to anything. And in that moment, looking at this unemployed man-child, living off his retired parents and begging his brother for money, I almost laughed. It was all so pathetic. "You have 5 minutes to get off my property before I call the police," I said, my voice calm and steady. And for the first time, they seemed to realize that they had truly, completely lost. They left, defeated, my mother hurling one last, desperate insult over her shoulder. It's been a day since that final confrontation, and there has been nothing but silence. I truly hope it stays that way. They chose their golden child, and now they have to live with their choice.